What's up, guys? Happy Friday afternoon. Big day of NBA tonight. Lots of games, 11 of them. And the more games, the more props to shop. And hopefully the better edge to be found and make some money tonight. It is another installment of the Best Picks show, live show. I guess that's not really a good name for a show, but it's a good name to show up for a show in Google, so we'll call it that. Anyway, I'm Gun, twitter.com/Gundacker, joined by Josh, aka Mouse. What's up, Josh? You feeling all right today, buddy? You want to take a dump?
Oh, man. Yeah, really disappointed in the Warriors. They just laid a big egg last night. It happens. Hey, props to the Pacers, man. They played with a lot of heart. And Dorte, I think he showed out. I mean, the Warriors really wanted him with that 14th pick, and the Pacers got him with the 13th pick. So I think he showed what they missed out on.
Oof. Yeah, the baby's still mad about the loss too.
Yeah, he is.
No, man, that would sometimes teams don't know they're supposed to suck and get smacked. And last night, maybe the Warriors played a little too much down to the competition. It was a weird game. I got into some second half game prop action. With Goga Batase, he got ejected. It's just like I keep getting guys they're getting ejected. But what a ridiculous headbutt! I don't know if he was trying to intimidate Gary Payton, but he just looked like a clown trying to do it. Kudos to Gary Payton for no selling it the whole way through. But yeah, last night was what we thought it was. The only thing that really made me not have a fantastic night last night was I anchored a lot of Julius Randle over fantasy points. He only had 25, 26. They got smoked. They didn't play the fourth quarter. He got booed by the home crowd. They made him. The Knicks didn't make him available for post-game presser media questions. So weird stuff there. But for the most part, nailed a lot of what we attacked yesterday. I said it yesterday. I wasn't going to force stuff. You take what they give you. And the smaller the slate, say like yesterday, a little bit uglier. The Ingram assist hit. What else? We were on the Randall. Was it the Randall assist prop hit? And I, like a dummy, I took the fantasy points. And Chris Paul, I was all over Chris Paul, 25.5 PRA, and he went bananas. So I was pretty happy with the process, pretty happy with the results. But definitely would have cleared a couple grand if Julius Randle hit over 40, because he was anchoring some big stuff. Tonight is a much bigger slate, like I said, so we should have a couple of easier paths to feel better about what's on the table. There is plenty to choose from. We've already looked at a couple that we're gonna discuss today, but what I like to do when I prop hunt, you think about the linear props, right? They're based on season averages, and you're not going to get a whole lot of give and take if there's no impacts to the player's current situation. Meaning, if it's a full strength team against in an average total, an average matchup, usually all the props going to be about right. So I like to find what spots involve teams either in a high total, higher pace than usual, or what teams are missing a couple of guys. And we know a couple of teams will be without a couple of starters today. Namely, going through the list here, we know that the Miami Heat will again be without Tyler Hero and Kyle Lowry. So I'm going to be interested in looking and discussing Jimmy Butler stuff. He got ejected last game. I don't know about you, but I'm willing to have goldfish memory and just trust the process going forward. Also, we know that the Brooklyn Nets are still without Kevin Durant, so we might be leaning on James Harden, Kyrie Irving a little bit more on the road here. I did like the Kyrie scoring prop last slate. Memphis Grizzlies without Desmond Bane, Dylan Brooks. We know that's going to raise a lot of usage, a lot of real scoring responsibility for Ja Morant. And We just got news before we went live that Rudy Gobert had been downgraded to questionable, which is an extremely interesting development. They are at home in a 14-point spread, and Hassan Whiteside still listed as out, and they already don't have Donovan Mitchell. So if Rudy Gobert can't, if Rudy Gobert can't go, that might represent 35 to 40 minutes of that need to be replaced. Might be just an overall boost for everybody. Royce O'Neal, Bojan, Ingles. This is a similar situation from the last game where they were large favorites at home against Houston. Houston punched them in the mouth, stole one. But without Donovan Mitchell and without Rudy Gobert, potentially, we get a lot of implied minutes and a lot of implied rebounds and real points to maybe compensate for. So there's definitely some spots to attack. And then lastly, your Warriors tonight. Without Klay Thompson, tonight to a back-to-back, still without Draymond, I'm definitely interested in hearing some Steph Curry takes. So plenty of spots I think we can start with and shop around. I want to remind any of you guys watching that I will be live again after this show, going much more in-depth game by game from a DFS standpoint, but I'll still be considering stuff for PrizePicks. So even if I skim over some stuff here, I'll likely circle back on the next show and go a little bit deeper. So I guess let's go in order of sequence in terms of start time here. Lakers and the Magic. Wasn't much that I thought was going to stand out to me. I would say before we went live, we did talk about how Mo Bamba's real point prop was a little bit low. The LA Lakers, if we look at the team metrics chart in the RunDFS.com NBA VIP spreadsheet, the Lakers allow a top 5 amount of points in the paint. Mo Bamba has been ramping back up in terms of conditioning, and in his most previous game, he cooked Joel Embiid for a lot of real points. And as this Magic team starts to get healthier and starts to get back to where they want to be, I thought 10.5 real points on Mo Bamba might be something I'd have a piece of. Looking at a more juicy game, I know you highlighted this one in our notes, the Thunder at the Hornets. We've got a 222.5 total. Charlotte favored by 9, but Charlotte's the gift that keeps on giving. They give us such a fast-paced brand of basketball, and they favor offense more than defense. So a lot of times you can catch some value in lines against the Hornets, and in this spot you have to wrestle with the game staying competitive. But if it does long enough, strong enough, there might be some Thunder lines to like. So I'll throw it to you on the Thunder side here. Did you have any initial strong leans that you wanted to point out for this game, and then any on the Thunder side that you're interested in?
Yeah, I've been going to Rozier a lot on this past few games, but I feel like this is like a Bridges game, perfect matchup for him with his size and his style of play. I feel like Dort could cover Rozier a lot and LaMelo, so I'm really liking Bridges' point total at 19.5. And maybe Rozier, could still get there with his assist, but they did bump his assist up to 4.5 from 3.5. But he has been assisting at a very high rate lately. So I really like this matchup. And then on the other side with SGA, what do you have his fantasy point projection at? Because he's at 41.5, and that seems pretty reasonable right now.
I have him at 42.5, so I don't get a big gap. Okay. But like you said, if the game stays close, it's always something to do with SGA. But right now, my early projection wasn't like blowing 41.5 out the water. So on a bigger slate, I probably want a wider margin.
Yeah, maybe it's 22.5 point total. I was kind of debating between the two. I just like the fast paced matchup. So
exactly, I agree. All right, so I can get with you on the Bridges prop there. Bridges also a guy that's going to play likely the most minutes on the Hornets team. Yeah, PJ Washington is back. Kelly Oubre came back. But Bridges' minutes and the Thunder being who they are allow so many points to front courts, really so many fantasy points to every position. It's a good spot for Bridges in a couple different departments. I also don't mind looking at diversifying the Bridges exposure. 20.5 real points is nice, but 38 fantasy points versus what I got. I've got him at 40.7, so there's a little room for an over, and then PRA's at 31.5. So if I was going to get to 31.5 fantasy points, I'd probably just take a shot on a couple blocks and steals falling his way to get to 38. So okay, I'm with you on that. Any other shouts from this game?
Maybe Josh Giddey rebound prop. Is this? I don't know if it's still at 7, but that could be a good spot for him since Charlotte is ranked second to last in rebound percentage and fast-paced game. A lot of shots are going to go up, so he could get there on the rebounds.
Yeah, I actually got Giddey at 6.5, so looks like it went down. If you saw 7.
Okay. Yeah, it opened at 7, so
that's
interesting.
Wow.
Yeah, he's even more.
He's averaging 7.5 on the season, right? Obviously, there's a couple games where a couple guys were out. SGA's missed a stretch, but yeah, in a fast-paced spot like this, definitely can get behind Giddey over 6.5. 11, 6, 10 his last couple games. Dallas, one of the better defenses, slower-paced teams. So if you're gonna, increase the implied possessions with the pace like the Hornets offer, yeah, I think 6.5. I'll get behind some of that for sure. So give me 6.5 rebounds for Josh Giddey. Moving on to the Hawks and Heat game. So the Miami Heat without Kyle Lowry, without Tyler Hero. Last game, we were on many of the Butler props, and unfortunately, Jimmy Butler was ejected in 15 minutes of play. But in those 15 minutes, he was stuffing the stat sheet, working his way to that slow triple-double. Probably had another 30 or 25 minutes to go. So I'm willing to have a goldfish memory here. Sometimes, with prop betting, it's not a 50-50, right? It's not yes or no. This is, if you think of the roulette table, black and red, there's still the double zeros. And for prop betting, double zeros and single zero, foul trouble, ejections, injuries, it's bound to happen. But I think we shake it off here, and I think we go hunting for some Jimmy Butler props because the Atlanta Hawks team defense has been something I've picked on all year, and they're kind of short in their own right and could be even shorter based on the availability of Capella, who's missed a couple games, Gallinari. We know Bogdanovich is out, Cam Reddish Jr. not on the team anymore, so it could be a really strong spot for Jimmy Butler with the team implied to score well over 100 real points. If I pull up that on-off court tool via Add More Funds and I put Jimmy Butler on the court and I take off Hero and Kyle Lowry, we're going to get a usage rate of about 26% with a 39% assist rate. Bam Adebayo has recently reemerged for Jimmy and the Heat in the last couple of games, so that'll help him with a little bit of responsibility. But there's a lot to like for Jimmy Butler against the Atlanta Hawks today from a real-life and fantasy standpoint. Looking at some of the lines here for the Heat, specifically for Jimmy Butler, we have 19.5 real points, 6.5 rebounds, 7 assists, and 44.5 fantasy points. I'm getting a little bit more fantasy points than PrizePicks right now. Not a ton, but they also have 33.5 points, rebounds, assists. Did you like any of these lines by themselves, or are you scattering exposure to them in general? I think the assist line is pretty interesting.
Yeah. I think I'm just gonna load up again on the assist line because if you watch that game before he got ejected, he was doing his usual Jimmy Butler role of facilitating, and he was on pace with 4 or 5 assists. So I really like the 7 assists again here, and I like pairing it with Bam. I like pairing with Bam's 15.5 points and Bam's 39 fantasy points too. Yeah, sorry, my kids are home sick today.
Hey, I ain't tripping. But yeah, you You got to play the father role, man. Take care of them babies. I don't care. 46 fantasy points on Bam is what I got him right now. Looking at Prize Picks, they have him at 39. So I get about 6-7 point gap in Adebayo, and kind of like Jimmy, he'll take over a little bit of facilitation if he has to. 17% assist rate this year, and we've seen if we elongate on that, going back to like last year and years prior, there's been spots where Adebayo has had to really hold the load in the absence of Butler and everyone else. So when I extend on this hero, Lowry off the court, Butler on. Matter of fact, let me specifically list that Adebayo's on the court. Adebayo has sustained a usage rate of 21.6% and over 21% assist rate. So I don't mind getting to some Bam Adebayo exposure either. The 15.5 real points, 9 rebounds, and then probably my favorite, just to encompass all of his potential, is the 39.5 fantasy point projection line, because I do have him about 6-7 fantasy points over that, and the Atlanta Hawks are just not a great defense, and there is some defensive peripherals to be had, like blocks and steals. That's part of Adebayo's game to help raise that floor. So I'm definitely behind Adebayo lines here. On the other side, Trae Young has been 30 real points, 10 assists, and go from there. They got him at 27.
I think it's under, actually, yeah.
His fantasy points or
real life points. I think he's at 27.5, right?
27.5 real points, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the Celtic or the Heat's defense has been elite lately, and I don't know if you watched the Blazers game, but they just completely shut them down in the fourth quarter. So they could definitely do the same here and limit Trae's point total.
I'm indifferent on that because the quality of opponent, but then again, with the Hawks, they are so top heavy that I'll probably leave that one alone. But I get it. I guess Clint Capella, we'll keep an eye on him. If he's back, it beefens up that front court. He has missed a couple of games. He's listed as questionable right now with left ankle sprain, limited participant at Thursday's practice. If he did come back, it might raise a floor and assist for Trae Young to have someone else to lob to. But I don't think I'm going to tail the Trae Young look, but I do like the Heat side. Moving forward, we don't have to stop on every game. Just let me know if did you have anything on Blazers Celtics that you liked?
I want to, because the Blazers defense is so bad. But it's just that coin toss of Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and just trying to predict which one is going to go off and hit all their props. But I mean, Jaylen Brown is at 22.5 real points, and that's well below his season average. I think it was around 24.
Mm-hmm.
So that is appealing, but again, you just always have to worry about the Tatum factor. And I guess is Marcus Smart's questionable? Is he on track to play?
I have a Q tag with conditioning. So, yeah. The other guy that we were highly on last game, Robert Williams, we were smashing his 30 fantasy point prop. I even liked him for over 10.5 real points. Today, he's back on the board. If you guys didn't know, he had a baby. Well, I guess he didn't have a baby. His girlfriend did. Semantics. That's a joke. That's dumb. Sorry. But now he's at 9.5 real points at 32.5 fantasy score. So the fantasy score prop went up from the last game, but the real points went down a hook. I don't necessarily like picking on Nurkic individually, but a guy like Robert Williams is pretty talented for 9.5 fantasy points to be the line on him. So if he were to be back, I don't mind looking at him because he's a very active big that could really clear most of these lines. I do have him clearing the FanDuel points right now. He only averages 10 points a game, but that's still, I don't know, that's low enough line that I would be interested in. But at the end of the day, if I got to no exposure to a Celtics and Blazers prop line on an 11-game slate, I don't think I'd lose any sleep. Bulls at the Bucks. Bucks are pretty full strength health-wise. Drew Holiday returned. They're only down Brook Lopez in terms of their championship team, so I'm not running to much here. I think most lines will be pretty appropriate, unless you think they're overvalued and you want want to get to some unders on the Bulls side, they're still without Lonzo Ball and Zach LaVine. That's representing 65 plus minutes apiece. LaVine in itself 25, 26 real points a game. We've seen Kobe White and Ayo Dosunmu kind of pick up some slack. In that last game, we saw Alex Caruso come back. Did you have anything from this game that you wanted to get behind? It does seem like if the Bulls are going to be somewhat competitive, a lot of it's going to be based on the offense flowing through DeMar DeRozan and maybe one of these perimeter shooters like a Kobe White. But I could understand not wanting to get here on an 11-game slate. Did anything stand out?
Yeah, nothing stood out
Okay.
because, like you said, the Bulls are getting back to full strength, and DeRozan's just been so up and down recently with his shot. So
Yeah, I like when DeRozan gets to share a court with LaVine. It spreads a little bit more, and the defense can't really sell out for one guy. In this spot, DeRozan's in a little bit of a tougher spot because defenses can really key in on him specifically. So I'm okay with skipping this one. KP Kicks, man, I appreciate that sub. Welcome to the channel. Raptors at the Wizards. We got to pick them. I think the home court hook was the last I saw for the Wizards, 218.5. We talked about it last stream. Raptors, if there was ever going to be a prop line set for minutes played per player, the Raptors would just be all overs and take your shots there. The Wizards got Bradley Beal back. Their front court has seen Montrezl Harrell, Rui Hachimura, Thomas Bryant come back. So maybe pull away a couple minutes and peripherals for Kuzma. So there's not a whole lot here that I think I'll like pre-flop. I guess the caveat would be, did we get any overvaluing of the Wizards here? Kuzma 16.5 real points, 8 rebounds, 31.5 fantasy score. I mean, that's really low actually. Not much here that like screams at me. Did you have anything from this game, or did you want to move on?
yeah, I went fishing for overvalue too, and I did not see any for the Wizards side, so I just kind of skipped over this game.
All right. By the way, and I told you my local places seem to be running out of black cherry vanilla. So
Yeah,
I noticed I had nothing in my fridge. I didn't want to brew up some coffee. I was like, nah, I got to get something. So I ordered some Bang from 7-Eleven. They didn't have my flavor, but they had something called Delish Strawberry Kiss. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. Keep an eye on it.
nice. I'll try it out.
I'm still trying to get that Bang sponsorship. Nets at the Spurs, 232.5 total. Gotta have something here. One of the highest totals on the slate, tight spread. Brooklyn Nets, we know we can isolate some more of that scoring usage to go on the guards, the Hardens, the Kyries, and to an extent, Patty Mills. And there is no Kevin Durant. So if we go use that on-off court tool just to paint a picture as we start to get a little bit more sample size on the Brooklyn Nets this season, we'll put Harden and Kyrie on the court. And we'll take KD off the court. And we are left with a usage rate of 25.5% on James Harden, 28.9% on Kyrie. Kyrie this season has held the higher assist rate, 34%, while Harden's at 26%. Both really, really good. Both about a fantasy point per minute or better, 1.25 for the FanDuel side of things. And if we elongate on those splits to last season, we get James Harden jumping Kyrie in assist percentage, sitting at 34.7%, while Kyrie's at 22. Let's go home. Let's go home. Look at Fish. What up, Fish?
Love the new content. Thanks, Josh and Gun.
Appreciate that, Fish. Shout out to Fish. Fish might,
Yeah, fish up, man.
he might get his biggest D of the month back. Damron currently in it. So anyway, if the Brooklyn Nets score 116 points right now today, you expect 40 to 50% of those points to have some type of connection to James Harden and Kyrie Irving. The Brooklyn Nets board on PrizePicks is not loading. When I type in Nets, it gives me Hornets, right? Like, is there a hack if I just type in Brooklyn? Maybe could I just, there we go. James Harden's listed at 24.5 real points, 10.5 assists, 50.5 fantasy points. Kyrie's at 5 assists, 24.5 real points. These are higher numbers than we had seen in the last game. However, there still might be some wiggle room for the over. Kyrie 30 and 27 points his last 2 games, both also in this similar split. No Kevin Durant with James Harden. If the Brooklyn Nets score 116 points today, do you think Kyrie has 25 or more real points? What's standing out to you from the Nets side?
Kyrie mainly. I mean, this is a perfect spot for him against the Spurs. Still top 10 in pace, and I feel like this is a spot where he's just gonna get up to 30 again. And we saw what Booker just did to the Spurs. Dropped almost 50 real life points. So same style of play. I really like him here. His assist prop, he barely got over that 4.5. We had to sweat that. He got it at the very end last game. Probably too risky at 5 now for that. And then you can always get to Harden's assist, but at 10, it's pretty high, and it's right there. So I feel most comfortable about Kyrie at 24.5. But the thing I'm most interested is on the other side of the ball with DeJounte Murray at 7.5 assists. One of my favorite props of the day. Well below his season average, and in a fast-paced matchup, I really like the 7.5 for him to get over the 7.5 assists.
Yeah, I was a little bit worried about DeJounte Murray's stability game to game with Derek White returning not only to the team but to the starting lineup. So I guess it's worth doing a split check on that. So let's do DeJounte Murray, Derek White together. And then I'll split them to see what benefit that we do have or don't have. No matter what, DeJounte Murray is such a do-it-all type of guy that if you put him in a pace-up spot with a 230 total, I'm with you. I think a lot of stuff makes sense. But with Derek White, a 33% assist rate. So, over 30% is all I need to see. 25% usage rate. So it's not like it's that much of a negative impact. If anything, Derek White's an extra shooter to help Murray get those assists. But just for the sake of it, running one query of Murray on and Derek White off, Murray's assist rate goes to 42%, so it is higher without Derek White, but it's still pretty high with Derek White. So, I'm with you on that. I think that correlates well with a lot of what we like on the net side. So 7.5 assists, sure, sign me up for that. He's cleared that in all but one of his last couple games. That was a Phoenix game. Phoenix, we know, can be a little bit scrappier on defense at times. So I don't mind that call. I think I could sign up for that. Just to go backwards, just for a second, Kyrie Irving. Because his numbers so far this season have been so, I don't want to say unstable in terms of assist rate versus real points, but his last 2 games, 30 real points, 7 assists, 27 real points, 9 assists. So even if we had some worries about, a point prop or the assist prop, he's also getting a couple rebounds. And I think back to Chris Paul yesterday, 34.5 points, rebounds, assists. I feel like I like that number as well.
That's a good call.
Yeah, so I think I'll jot that one down in the notes here. Give me some 34.5 Kyrie. And then looking back at the Spurs once again, 215 implied points. There's plenty of mouths to feed. DeJounte Murray is a guy that doesn't get the fouls that you would hope he would get, but he's at 1.5 free throws. He's only been to the line like 2, 3, 7 times, but anytime a high volume point guard in a high total has such a low free throw mark, I might be interested in a couple of cards with that. I don't think I pushed the issue here though. John, appreciate that sub. And then while we're talking about DeJounte Murray, he's a walking triple double. His points, rebounds, assists also at 35.5. The main reason I wouldn't be like pushing that is because we do lose the steals and blocks, and I do believe that's a big part of DeJounte's game. This season he's averaging 2 steals a game, half a block per game. So that's an extra 6, what would we say, 7.5, 8 implied fantasy points. So I would probably just take the 45.5 fantasy points. I have him at 48, so it's a little bit of a edge there, not a lot, but yeah, plenty to like about DeJounte Murray. Any of these supplementary, tertiary guys standing out to you? Jakob Poeltl.
Yeah, I was gonna say Jakob. I wanted to get your pick your brain on him. I know your fantasy score is pretty much on point with PrizePicks projection of 33, but I mean, I feel like he could get there. I mean, it's a great matchup against Brooklyn.
Yeah.
So I would feel comfortable with the 33 fantasy score, since he can pick up those peripherals with the blocks.
Yeah, I think any line for Jakob Poeltl looks exploitable. The 22.5 PRA is intriguing as well, but again, with his defensive ability, 33 fantasy points is pretty easy to get to. In line with what I got, but this total could give us some goodness. You just hope that this game does stay. Or you hope that the Spurs don't go full small ball, where they kind of like roll out Keldon Johnson or what have you, versus like, I don't know, a Blake or LaMarcus. Speaking of LaMarcus, man, I'm sick of him going off. We don't have a line for him. But yeah, okay, so lots to like about this Nets game. I think we're both in agreement on the Kyrie and DeJounte situation. James Harden, did you have any action early on for Harden? I think he's pretty expensive in terms of all of these lines. Maybe free throws is an intriguing option because of how high the total is. Maybe draw some extra fouls against some of these clunky front court guys. But nothing that I think I have to have. The 44.5 points, rebound, assists, kind of like Kyrie. We know he's going to get points, rebounds, and assists. So if you're a little bit skittish on the specific lines, and you just want to throw them all together, I think 44.5 PRA is intriguing, but at that point, we're 5 away from 50 fantasy points, so you might as well hope for an errant blocker still. I think all of them are pretty juiced. I have them at 60 fantasy points, so there is a 10-point margin of difference. So I guess that would be the one I go after, 50 fantasy points over. What are you thinking on that?
Yeah, I could get on the fantasy points. The other props, since I'm going to go so heavy on Kyrie, I probably stay away from the Harden points or anything like that, negative correlation. I guess it could pair with his assists, but like you said, it's juiced up at 10.5. So I'll probably stay away from his props, except maybe consider the fantasy scores, since it is such a good matchup.
All right, Grizzlies at the Nuggets. Jokic coming off a 90-plus fantasy point game. The Memphis Grizzlies coming to town, just a 3.5-point dog. Grizzlies without 2 of their best role player scorers. No Desmond Bane, no Dylan Brooks. And that'll leave a lot of pressure on Ja Morant to pick up a lot of scoring. Maybe some Jaren Jackson, though you do worry about him keeping his hands to himself tonight. But just for this conversation, let's take Dylan Brooks and Desmond Bane off the court for the Grizzlies. Let's put Ja Morant on. Ja Morant is somebody that in this split will hold a usage rate of 35.5%. If you guys are not familiar with usage rates, if you're strictly coming in from a betting and a prop market standpoint, usage rates are in a dumb way to explain it, is like if you're part of the end of a possession, that's part of your usage. So assist, a missed shot, a made shot, stuff like that. So 35.5% is really doggone high. I always say 30% is like the magic number for me in terms of guys that I can't look away from. So getting above that number is really, really good. And a 38% assist rate with a 1.34 PrizePicks point per minute rate. There's a lot to like here for Ja Morant if you expect this game to stay competitive, and Ja is just crushing it this season. I got him at 55 fantasy points for PrizePicks scoring. Looking at the PrizePicks line, they got him at 45. So kind of like James Harden, I'm getting a 10-point gap between my numbers and their numbers. So that might be a line I get behind. 26 and a half real points considering this split where he's got to pick up a lot of scoring is intriguing as well. A lot of times they'll stick Aaron Gordon on the opposing guard. I just don't really see Ja Morant being that. He's really matchup proof, man. He does not care. He throws his body at the win. So I like a lot of Ja Morant numbers here. I don't see myself getting too involved with Jaren Jackson just because he gets into a lot of foul trouble, and I do worry about him crossing up with Jokic here and there. But Ja Morant leaves a lot to like. Did you like some of these Ja numbers, and did you have any looks on the Nuggets? Not really PrizePicks related, but I did see earlier that DeMarcus Cousins could be available tonight for the Nuggets, and we know they've recently picked up Bryn Forbes, former Spurs great, so they're getting some of that second unit help that Jokic so sorely needs. What are your thoughts on Grizzlies and Nuggets?
Yeah, I really like the Morant call. Point guards, versus the Nuggets have just been feasting, and they couldn't even stop Reggie Jackson. They had Aaron Gordon on him last game, and he was just going off, so then Jokic ended up having to come out and guard Reggie the entire game. And they still couldn't slow him down. So, they really struggle against guards. And this year, like you said, it's a perfect spot for Morant. So I like the over 45 fantasy score since he, does, fill up the stat line. In the Nugget side, maybe this would be a time to go under on Jokic rebounds. Memphis is number 1 or 2 in rebounding, and Steven Adams has given him issues down low, kind of bullying him around. So I think I could get some under 12.5, but that's kind of right on the fringe because it's it's Jokic and his rebound. He could easily crush over 14 rebounds. So, but yeah, on the Nuggets side, nothing really stood out to me. How about you?
There's a couple spots where I'm like 10 points higher than PrizePicks on fantasy projections. Honestly, I'll keep tightening these screws as I get closer to lock. Still got the DFS show coming up right after this show. But I got Jokic at almost 70 fantasy points right now. And they got him at 56. So that's a pretty large gap. Jokic is a beast. But I don't hate that rebound call. Like you said, Memphis is so good at rebounding. And then if Jokic plays, a couple of less minutes because of Boogie's availability, maybe we eat at that. That last game did go to overtime. He was slow boogieing his way, no pun intended, to that over on this number. So yeah, I don't think that's a crazy call. But there's a couple of guys in the league that I hate betting unders on, and Jokic is one of them.
I know.
On 11 game slate, for the sake of my sanity, I might skip that one. Let's get caught up on chat. Brody, what about Steven Adams over 8.5 rebounds if you like Jokic under? I struggle with Steven Adams' minute projections. I still think Jaren Jackson Jr., Brandon Clark, that front court's healthy enough that I don't often get to big minutes on Adams. So there's some guys I don't like betting unders, or some guys I don't like betting overs because the sweat's annoying. But Adams has been a hog, and he's definitely a big part of the Grizzlies' rebound percentage being as high as it is, 11, 10, 14, 11 in less than 26 minutes in some of these games. I don't think it's a bad call, but it's probably something I don't have the risk tolerance to take just based on the minute projection being as low as it is, right? 11-game slate, I'm trying to really feel great, right? Not good, not okay. I want to feel great about everything. So that's where I'm at on that. Real quick, the last 2 games on this slate involved the Pistons and the Jazz. The Pistons, massive road dogs. The Jazz, right when I went live, Rudy Gobert downgraded to questionable. Oftentimes, I'll treat midday questionables as closer to out than in. And if Gobert can't go, Hassan Whiteside's already listed as out. Donovan Mitchell's out. So I'd probably just pray and spray overs on all of the Jazz. My boy the other day against the Rockets hit me up for some Jazz props. I was like, look, dude, just bet the over on everyone individually in your sports book. more will hit the over than not, right? And that's exactly what happened. They took all the Jazz numbers off the board right now, so we can't really discuss in depth what we might be on. Maybe in the DFS show, some numbers will open back up. The Pistons got back Kelly Olynyk last game. He was an instant part of them scoring fantasy points against the Kings. I cashed in on the Trey Lyles under. They didn't give me that today. They do have Isaiah Stewart, 20 fantasy points. If there's no Gobert, I feel like that's too close for comfort. There's not much to like or dislike. So I think I'll skip the Pistons, and then we'll move on to the final game on the slate. Before we do that, I'm going to remind you guys, if you guys want access to this spreadsheet that we're using for this stream, and you want to see where myself or Josh end up on a lot of projections, and then of course we have this new tab, the prop detector, homage to the bomb detector that Josh has been listing and tracking his stuff as well. You can get access to this behind the paywall in the rundfs.com VIP membership section. Grab a membership, then go to VIP portal. There'll be links to the spreadsheet, and most importantly, link to the Discord. Get in here, and then before lock, for 2 hours before the first game locks, I'm in the voice chat, NBA chat, so come be part of that. We'd love to have you in the community. Last game tonight is definitely worth talking about from a prop standpoint. The Rockets coming off a win against Utah. Pretty full strength. Only John Wall listed on the out list today. So Silas has an opportunity to have an diluted minute rotation for his team. Usually when that happens, I just key in on Christian Wood and Kevin Porter Jr. But on the Warriors side, Warriors night 2 of a back-to-back. No Draymond Green. We've seen that defense struggle mightily without Draymond. No Andre Iguodala because it's night 2 of a back-to-back. No Klay Thompson, who's been ramping back up. So last night, Otto Porter didn't play. He'll likely be a go today. But Steph Curry was a guy that kind of stood out to me from a fantasy standpoint. I know his floor this season from a bird's eye view has not been consistent from a fantasy perspective, but there's a lot going his way. First and foremost, the Houston Rockets defensively are one of the worst teams in all of basketball. They have the worst defensive efficiency in the league, 115.2 points per 100 possessions. They give up the most steals per game, and when it comes to blocks per game allowed, they're high up there as well. So a lot of times, third in blocks per game allowed. So they just bleed fantasy points to every position. But most notably, they give up a lot of real points. And for Steph Curry, you're a Warriors fan in the thick of it. If I'm Steph Curry, if I'm the Warriors after losing to the G League Pacers, it's Steph Curry dropping 40 points tonight, right?
Yeah. That was, you could just see it in their face. Like there was just complete disappointment, and Steph even had like a laugh. Like, did that really just happen at the end of the game? So I think he keeps it up, and it's good. His shots are starting to fall again. He's been at a career low field goal percentage, around 36%. This pretty much half of the season. So, but I mean, last night his threes were falling and finally getting some layups to go in. So I feel pretty comfortable about his 24.5 point total.
Yeah, 24.5 seems really low.
Yeah,
really low. 228 total. Even with the spread being what it is, like 24.5. I mean, jeez, yeah. That might be one of my favorite spots on the day. I ran an on-off court query. He has a 32.4% usage rate without Klay and Draymond this season. A 135 FanDuel point per minute, which is the same as PrizePicks, and we know he'll likely lead the team in shots. I know Jordan Poole has shown a propensity to eating to a shot attempt, stuff like that. But I have very little doubt that I think Steph Curry picks up a lot of slack today. And you mentioned it. There's not much in this matchup against the Rockets that pushes me away. And we talked about the really every metric that matters. But Houston, porous against the three ball as well. So yeah, massive spot for Steph Curry.
And there's two other spots I like too on the Warriors side.
Okay, we'll go to that. Just want to point out this is another spot where I'm like 10 points higher on the fantasy projection. They got him at 46. I like him for like 54. Who else do you like on the Warriors?
Andrew Wiggins over 1.5 block steals. Like you mentioned, you just mentioned about the Rockets giving up the most blocks and steals.
Mm-hmm.
He's kind of stepping up recently on that side of things. And Looney's just keeps rebounding machine with Draymond out. So I would take him over nine rebounds too.
Yeah, I can get behind all of that. Rockets also just really every metric, right? I just love looking how red that they're listed in just about every metric. Defensive rebound rate. The Rockets have a bottom 5 defensive rebound rate. Offensive rebound rate, the Rockets are below league average well. So that bodes pretty well for Kevin Looney, who had a really big game last night. And then points in the paint allowed per game, the Rockets are bottom 6, bottom 7 Rockets are bottom 2 in points in the paint. So Kevin Looney might have some value in really multiple categories, also potentially in the blocks and steal category because of what we're dealing with. They have a 17.5 PRA, but 25 fantasy points. So that's a line that I think he clears more than he doesn't against these Rockets. So I'm with you on the Wiggins call. I can get behind some of these Looney props. The rebounds look like a good shot. And then I'm in love with the Curry lines as well. I don't think I bother with the Rockets lines today. Like I said, I want to keep my totals pretty sharp. But I think we can both be adults here and admit that this Warriors defense slacks a little bit without Draymond.
In the paint. Yeah, in the paint, man. Each game you see him just get dominated. And I think Christian Wood could have a big game. I mean, if the game's going to stay somewhat close, it's going to be because of Wood. And I mean, 37 fantasy points. I mean, that's appealing.
Yeah, and 6.5 real points for Christian Wood as well. So definitely a spot where you can largely ignore the seasonal metrics in some of the defensive categories for the Warriors and maybe appreciate some of the opportunity for the other team. Goga Pataze, even though he got ejected for being a weirdo, had a massive fantasy game. I think he had 30 fantasy points pretty much by halftime. A guy like Christian Wood is a little bit more solidified and talented. Definitely kind of stands out here. I'm probably not going to get to Jay Sean Tate or Jalen Green, Eric Gordon, all those guys, but the matchup bodes well for a team needing to score. And that's it, man. That is our 11-game slate for PrizePicks chat. Getting caught up here. When does PrizePicks do reload codes? I don't know about reload codes, but I do know that today is Friday, and because it's Friday, they do what they call happy hour, where you could bet as little as $1, and I think that's active for another hour. And I also know that this weekend they have an insane discount, Josh. I don't know if you saw this, but Patrick Mahomes over half a passing yard. Now, that game's not until Sunday night, so you have to sit around with that card open, but that's a free promo. Maybe you want to save it for your NFL stuff. I did do an NFL PrizePicks video on this channel. You can find that. I uploaded this morning, so if you want to find some NFL action to get on. But if you love Lock of the Century stuff tonight for NBA, and you're fine with an extra card sitting in your open entries for a couple days, this is literally a free square. Mahomes is going to throw a 1 yard. Hot take, I know. Of course, there's a max bet on it, but don't forget that exists. And then, like I said, for the next hour, I believe you can bet as little as $1 on an entry. Josh, hiccup. I'm drunk. Any lasting words before I get out of here? I gotta get into this DFS show.
No, I think that we covered pretty much everything that I was targeting. So I feel like the Nets we're all pretty much agreeing on, and the Heat, and then the Warriors, and then some of the OKC Charlotte. I think all those are pretty comfortable clicking on props. So.
J. Cole says, do you like Wood for his points or rebounds or fantasy points the most?
I would say fantasy points. What do you say?
Fantasy points or points. One of those two is probably where I lean on.
Yeah. I mean, because he is going to get rebounds because the Warriors are struggling to rebound in the paint without Curry too. So he will get them.
All right, chat. That's going to do it. I got to get into the DFS show. If you're looking for that, I'm going live in just a few moments. Hit that thumbs up for me. If you're not subscribed, you like the content, hit subscribe. I'll see you guys in just a little bit. I love you guys. Good luck. God bless. Go win some money.